Got I'm hunting like 2 to 3 weeks a month this year.
Yeah.
It's freaking, I can't wait.
That's going to be awesome.
I'm going to Maui here in a couple weeks with Brad Hunt. We're going to go kill axis deer.
Oh, sweet.
That'll be fun. We're going to do axis deer. We're going to stick a pig with a knife.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
Isaac Gelman just did that.
Yeah, they went over. We're the same guy. So I actually hooked them up with the same guy.
Okay.
And then with Olin, you mean? Right?
Yep.
Yeah, they went over to the same guy. So we're going over there, and just the two of us. Got a little Jeep, which cool date, me and Brad for a week. Just going to be
Yeah,
in
that's awesome.
paradise. Both the wives are like, what the hell?
That's awesome. Yeah.
But anyways, super easy podcast. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So up at Taxdill, I'm hanging out in the Montana Knife Company booth with the owner, Josh. Josh, how you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have you on because you guys started the same year as us, 2020. And I feel like one of the most common things I hear about Tricer is, man, you guys came out of nowhere. You guys are so big, so fast. You're blowing up. And I feel the same way about Montana Knife Company. That you guys are, and I know it's probably, even though you started in 2020, you're probably putting a lot more work into it way before then.
Right.
Right, and that's how entrepreneurship works.
Right.
But, man, I really just want to bring you on, hear your story. I feel like we have a lot of similar people in common. A lot of guys running my stuff, running your stuff, and vice versa. So I see your stuff everywhere. It's exciting. I'm stoked for you guys, and I just want to hear more about your company and kind of how you got into making the most bitchin' knives in the industry, it seems like.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It definitely started before 2020 as far as the idea goes. I mean, for me, it went back to I registered the name Montana Knife Company when I was 19.
Oh, wow.
And always wanted to do this, but there were a few things, right? I mean, I started making knives as a kid when I was 11, and I made knives all the way through high school. But when you're 19, 20, 21, you don't know how to run a business, how to start a business. And I was still making custom knives and really learning a lot there and trying to build my name and reputation in the custom world. Mm-hmm. But definitely just had no idea back then how to scale up a business, right? And so over the years, a lot of stuff went on, right? I was a custom maker for 10 years. I then, when the economy went kind of south in 2008-9, I started thinking twice about custom knives just because they're very high end, and that's the first thing people cut out of their budgets, and when we were heading into recessions and talk of depressions, and I had 4 young kids, and so I got a job for the power company. Started off kind of as a grunt and worked my way up, got an apprenticeship, and became a journeyman lineman.
Okay.
Working on power lines. And I did that for about 9 years. And my house burnt down and got divorced, and it was like a sad country song. Broke as hell.
Did she take the dog?
What's that?
Did she take the dog too?
Yeah, pretty much. And so when I met my new wife, Jessica, when we started dating and got serious in that 2018 time frame, I started telling her about my idea of what I wanted to build for a knife company. Mm-hmm. And she's like, well, you should do that. And she basically was like, I have the house and the kids and everything. When you get home at night, start this company, build it. So before 2020, in 18, 19, I started making some prototypes and trying to figure out how do you scale in a production sense. I was making one knife at a time. Now we need to make hundreds with the goal to make thousands and tens of thousands, right? So, I started researching a lot online. I started talking to people and just trying to figure it out. And it's the same way probably with tripods. You can't just go to some big manufacturer and ask them to show you all their secrets.
No.
You have to figure that stuff out.
100%.
So I made a lot of mistakes, had a lot of challenges, but in 2020 we launched our website actually at Total Archery Challenge in July. And finally, by January 1st of 2020, it was apparent I needed to quit my job and make this a full-time gig.
Dude, it took me 4 years to make that decision. I finally just did it 2 months ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Best thing I ever did because it's growing even more substantially now. But that's awesome. You went right after it.
Yeah, it was one of those. It was a huge game. My business partner, actually, I didn't know this. He just told me a couple months ago. He said, when you did that, I thought you were crazy. I was like, well, I'm glad you didn't say that back then. I thought we were all on board, but kind of was all in at that point. We didn't take a paycheck for half of 2021, just kept building and growing it. and now we are where we are. We're not there yet. We're still making knives in a building on my own property at home. It's not like we have a different facility yet. We just bought property and we're going to try and build one. But we're still small compared to the big guys, but we're a lot bigger than we were a few years ago.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. And like, I like how you said like you were 19, 20, 21 years old, but you didn't quite know what to do with it yet.
Yeah.
And that's really what entrepreneurship is and starting a business is. It's like, it's a marathon.
It is.
Right? Like, if I would have started Tricer when I was 20 years old, it never would have made it. For
No.
one, like, I didn't take a paycheck for 4 years, right? Because I was putting back in the company. At that point in my life, I needed money so bad that I had to have a job and do all this stuff. But those times when you're 19, 20 years old is what were the building blocks of where you are today.
Yeah.
You are learning knives. You are learning things. And I encourage anybody who's, wanting to start a business who's young, just notice, just store. It's almost like a savings bank. Just save these experiences up. Like, I tell my kid all the time that my boys both work really hard. One of them has his own little business. $20 an hour, does whatever you want.
Yeah.
But I'm like, learn from this. And I told one, I was like, go get a job at one of these fast food places. Well, I don't want to work at fast food places. I'm like, no, dude, because those things are so successful all over the world. McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
Learn from that. Like, what are they doing differently? Because I guarantee you that you could apply some of that burger technology to your knife company.
Yeah, and at 20 years old, you're still super immature, right? And maybe emotional, maybe make decisions on an emotional standpoint, not maybe deal with situations through experience. I think you're full of a lot more piss and vinegar than I think I would have been way less apt to take on help from other people. At 2021, I think I would have tried to do everything myself. I think I was smart enough to realize at 40 years old, 39, that like, hey, I know knives and I can make knives, but I need help on the marketing side. Right? I'm going to have a guy help me with the marketing. I met Brandon. I was smart enough to realize his talents and then offer him a partnership. And so now it's him and I, right? And recognize even as we grew, okay, I can't keep doing the relationships and the shows and design and also run all the operations. So now I need an operations director. So I hired a director of operations, and we, I think when you want to grow a bigger company, you have to figure out where's the best value and use of your time.
Yes.
And in the beginning, it is sweeping the floor and taking out the garbage and doing everything in the beginning. But then there becomes a point where it's like, Tristan's standing right here in our booth. I hired him. He was still in high school. And I hired him I think I was paying him $11 or $12 an hour at that point, part-time job. He'd come out after school. Well, those few hours that he worked in there freed me up for a few hours to do something a little bit more important. And, so figuring out where your time is best served and managing your time, and also understanding we didn't buy our way into this industry. We built our way through this through relationships, like coming to these shows. We had no money to spend on marketing. We weren't going to go buy ads on Instagram or YouTube or in a magazine. We had to kind of like guerrilla warfare, come in here and just talk to people. And we gave a lot of product out.
We do the same. We give away product all the time.
Yeah.
Especially within the industry. And those relationships are so important.
And people don't understand. Sometimes people are like, oh, you won't give me one, but you'll give so-and-so one. And it's like, man, there's relationship stuff. I compare it to a farmer lays out a bunch of seed in the fall for his winter wheat, and then next spring that stuff starts popping up, right? You're planting seeds in the ground. That one seed is going to potentially sprout 10 more seeds.
Yeah.
And so we also seeded out a lot of product that we never got anything out of. It just disappears off into the ethos. And it's hard to know, like, did they talk about you? Did they do anything? We didn't ask anything for it. I didn't say, hey, I'll give you this, but I want you to make a post or I want you to do. It was like, hey, use it. If you like it, tell your friends. Well, sometimes you don't see it necessarily real outward on the internet. And then you find out 2 years later, you're talking to a guy and he's like, yeah, you gave a knife to, this Trevor Thompson guy 3 years ago, and he's been telling me about it, and it was all word of mouth stuff happening that wasn't on Instagram.
Yeah.
And so that word of mouth stuff's really important.
Like we have a mutual customer now, Gary. He's not in here anymore.
Yeah.
He's a guide, and I guarantee you that guy sells a ton of knives for you.
Yep, 100%.
And like that means so much
If
more. If
he's listening to this,
he sucks.
Yeah, he sucks, and I don't know who you're talking about.
Okay.
And he can't find any elk when he guides either.
Okay.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's the best sales thing, because we've become a rocket ship. Very similar companies, and a lot of the same. We've all self-funded everything. We've leveraged, like, trust me, like there's a way to get a Capital One card for $200,000. I know how to do it.
Yeah.
And we've leveraged the hell out of those things, bring inventory in, and then we've had to wait 30 days to sell something to pay it off.
Yeah.
And we've self-financed this thing all the way through. But man, there's nothing cooler to me than when someone shows up to elk camp with my tripod and 4 more guys buy my. Dude, this guy had it, and they all went out and bought it.
Yeah.
And that's really
and
your
those
best
and
sales
those
tool.
guides like Gary are, those hunters go with those guides. There's thousands of guides around this country. Those hunters they're professionals. They're the hunter is looking at the guide, going, what is that guy using? And then also those customers get to stand there and use your tripod day after day after day on hunts, and they start to see, even if they bring their own tripod, they start to see the differences in like, well, why are you spending that much money on a tripod? And then after a few days, it's like, oh, now I see why you're spending that money on that tripod,
Yep.
compared to a little cheapie,
You can't shoot what you can't find.
Right.
Tell it all the time.
Yeah, and man, you want to talk about changing the game. Like, very few people, I feel like, glass off of a tripod. If you glass off of a tripod with your binos, it's an absolute game changer. You're going to end up in your glass a lot more. You're going to pick out more stuff. Even with, I have the best optics. I use the best optics. They're so much better on a tripod. And you can make okay optics great
on a tripod. I would take okay optics on a tripod over great optics offhand.
I would agree with that.
It's so funny that you say no one, like, so it is catching on, right? Glassing's catching on up here. Like, coming from, like, my bread and butter is Arizona, New Mexico, California. Like,
yeah.
You don't glass offhand.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so opposite, right?
It is different. Like, and when I say up here, I'm kind of even talking more in Montana. We're sitting right here in Utah, but in Montana, it is a different style. Like I did an over-the-counter spot and stock mule deer hunt in Arizona. You go sit up on a high point, and you're glassing for hours, and you're waiting for those deer to get up and rebed one time, and you're living in your glass, and you're also sitting on a point where it's windy.
Yep.
And ergonomics is really important. Getting comfortable where your neck's not getting sore and your back, or standing there and being able to see off of that tripod. But in Montana, a lot of that's timber country and it's shorter bursts of glassing. Mm-hmm. But man, if you want to go bear hunt in Montana, you're going to glass just as much as you're going to glass mule deer hunting in Arizona.
Well, dude, not only that, like, I've only spent 2 weeks in Montana now. I was just up there. I did Western Hunting Summit with Lampers, and I did TAC.
Okay.
But it's such a game-rich environment.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so used to, like, spending 10 hours in the glass to find a deer, and I'm like, dude, there's just... It's like I shouldn't be blowing your spot out up here, but it's freaking awesome, man.
I think you meant Idaho. I think you meant Idaho.
Washington, Oregon, or go to Oregon. Everyone go to Oregon.
Yeah.
But man, so you worked your whole life basically since you probably learned when you were a kid, I imagine. Started making your knives, doing this stuff, and finally, 2020 you made the jump, which is a big part of it because so many people have an idea, right? People come with me ideas all the time. Almost no one goes through with them. Like, look, I got this idea for a patent. I'll give you all the time in the world, but if you're not going to if you're not actually going to pursue it, it's not worth my time.
You have to do it.
What separates people is the willingness to fail.
Yep.
Because you could have totally failed, but you know what you'd have done if you failed? You'd have been a lineman.
Right. Yep.
Like, people are so afraid to take that jump, and you took that jump. You're living the American dream. I was just telling you before that I'm going to be hunting 2 to 3 weeks a month, and it sounds like you're hunting a lot, you and your wife.
Yeah, we're going to be hunting quite a bit this fall.
Quite a bit. So you are living what my listeners' dream is. So am I. I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm living. I still work 16 hours a day. I never stop working. But I love my job.
Right.
I love being in the hunting industry. I love creating. I love that you guys, like listeners, will text me and email me and
yep.
tag me. Like, I killed this buck. I found this buck because of you.
there's nothing better than a customer. When you think about that, when they DM you a photo of, them glassing off your tripod or them using our knife, I tell our employees all the time in meetings, we'll show those pictures in meetings because I want to make sure it's easy to settle in when you're assembling and manufacturing stuff and start to lose connection with like the end result. So I show our employees, photos of these, successes of these guys have had, and they're using our knife. And I said, think about this for a second. This guy probably planned this moose hunt for 3 years, might have saved his whole life for this thing. He went on a hunt of a lifetime, shot this moose, and while he was in the process of taking photos, he goes, hold on a second, I want to take a picture of this knife so we can send it to MKC or send it to Josh. And I'm like, they pause in the middle of their like success of a lifetime to think of us and send a photo to us. And they also chose to include us when they were packing their gear because it's a big deal when you're going on a hunt like that. Every piece of gear you decide to choose, whether it's your tripod, your pack, your boots, everything's important. And I was like, they chose to take us along on their hunt of a lifetime. It's just so cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. So let's circle back to that jumping off, right? Because you did it earlier than me. It took me 4 years. I was basically all the money I was making at Tricer was going back into the company, but more products. So we have 15 products coming out this year. So it's going back into the products, back into the products, back into the products, which sucks when you take money because you need to pay taxes on that money, on inventory and stuff.
Yep.
So I was giant tax bills with no money coming in. But I made that jump this year. You made it pretty early. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what it means to start a business and really make that jump because people want to hear it. People. This is a success story, Montana Knife, that people want to hear about.
Yeah.
And we all root for you because you're one of us. You're just a dude. You're just a freaking lineman.
Yeah.
That started a knife company who's going to be hunting a piss ton this year.
Right.
We're talking like his wife's here, and she's saying, the camera turned off. Whatever.
Jess.
Yeah.
Yeah, going with Gary.
His wife's here, and she's talking about putting a walk-in freezer, and she's going to kill so many animals this year. Yeah. So, talk about that. What does it take? I mean, it takes balls.
Yeah.
It does take balls, and a lot of people don't have balls. A lot of people they get settled into their job, and they're too afraid to make the switch. But let's talk about what does it mean to you to start a company and then to quit your job and go at it full-time so quick? What does that mean? What's it take?
Well, I get a lot of people that do send me messages and they say, hey, it's super inspiring what you've done, whatnot. I want to start my own company and you've motivated me. I'm gonna quit my job and start chasing my dream. And sometimes I'll message back like, hey, I appreciate that. Like, where are you at in the process? Well, I haven't done anything yet. I need to quit my job and then I'm gonna start this. And I was like, bro, you I can guarantee you, same with your tripods. You have to start pursuing this dream in whatever hours you can spare outside of your job. Your day job has to pay your house payment. Unless you're in a different spot than I was, you still have bills to pay.
Dude, I worked from 4 a.m. to like 4 p.m. for my dad, driving an hour work and back each day.
Yeah.
And then I worked till 10 or 11 o'clock every night.
Right.
I worked 16-hour days every single day, Saturdays, Sundays, every day to get to where I am right now.
And I ask people, I'm like, when it's fall in 2018, 2019, it's like, hey, are you going to go to the football game this Saturday? Or do you guys want to come out to the bar? Do you want to go to the lake for the weekend? Do you want to go camping? Man, a ton of that was like, I would love to, but I'm going to be in my shop. Like, it takes sacrifice. You're going to have to decide to not go to the lake on a weekend or to not go camping or like you say, get up at 4 a.m. On the weekends, get up early and work till noon. And when your kids and everybody's up and at it, then go do something with them. But, like, you're going to have to find those hours and try and start your dream before you quit your job. It's just so – because if you quit too early, there's so much pressure that I think it can also affect your decision-making in a wrong way. If you're under so much pressure, you might make decisions – you still want to have no left on the table, right? If someone offers you – an opportunity and in your gut maybe it's not the right thing to do, but you're so desperate you're like, well, I'll try this. You're going to start making decisions for the wrong reasons. So there were a lot of things that we said no to that honestly probably at the moment would have been good, but they wouldn't have been good for the long-term plan. But that quitting your job thing at a certain point, when it starts to turn some revenue, Then all of a sudden it gets to where I started feeling bad. I was at work and I'm like on the phone on calls during the day.
I was telling my dad, I'm like, dude, you
And
understand?
my crew is
I'm
like,
screwing you, Dad. And he's like, you got to stay.
yeah.
You can't.
And it's like, well, I'm on a 4-man crew. We're working on a power pole structure, and I'm over on the phone trying to order steel for these knives, and I'm dealing with issues with assembly, with the product chain or the assembly, the materials, procurement of materials, and these guys are like, bro, you're on the phone way too freaking much. And so it gets to a point where like you almost need to quit your job.
Yep. So have you ever heard the story of like the Spanish conquistadors came over here and they went into Mexico and I can't remember, gosh, I wish I could remember the guy's name. It's like a famous conquistador. They went to shore.
Like Ponce de Leon or something?
I don't know. He went to shore and he goes, burn the ships.
Yeah.
And they go, what? And he goes, if we're going home on their ships.
Yep.
And they freaking conquered Mexico and Southern America.
So my financial guy that I hired, that's our controller, like does our accounting stuff for our company. We hired him last fall. He had an offer for a partnership in his accounting firm. He's from North Carolina, and would have been pretty well set, right? Well, I posted this controller job. He had been following our company, was kind of a fan of it, was tired of public accounting, and he talked to his wife and he was like, I think I want to try and take this job instead of the partnership. And she supported him. They moved out from North Carolina and he got the job, and he really took a big gamble from a guaranteed partnership in a firm that's been around a long time, and you just move right into making more money to work for us to help us grow this thing. And last week he came to the office and he has a full tattoo from the wrist to the elbow, and it's a burn the ships. It's got ships.
Really?
Ships all over his forearm, and it says burn the ships. And he kind of did it himself too in his own, like we did it as MKC, but then like he did it personally, like from burn down that firm and move to Montana and chase, because his goal is to be eventually like our CFO, right? But he has to learn, he has to take some steps back to get there. And so when you talk about that story, that's actually been talked about in our shop quite a bit in the last week, because Jason walked in with this huge, he's a financial guy that has no tattoos, and all of a sudden he walks in with a full arm sleeve.
That's awesome. And there's something to be said about it, right? Like, obviously you need to be smart. Like, I have 5 kids. I need to take care of my family first. I have a mortgage. I'm not going to quit my job. But we got to a point where I could do it. And I was scared because I worked for my dad for 24 years. I was running his company. And I had guilt there. There's son guilt because I'm leaving something that was, we're talking a company with 80 employees that's doing $12 million a year.
Right.
And a crazy person would walk away from this, right?
Right.
But it wasn't what I loved to do. And I tell you what, like, I burnt those ships. I'm still helping my dad. We're working on some stuff. But it's so freeing. And let me tell you something. Like, Tricer right now, other than like some retirement stuff I have saved, it's my only income.
Right.
People ask, like, why are you so hungry? Why? Like, you don't understand. Like, I have to be. I
Right.
want to be. I'm on the warpath to build the biggest and baddest tripod company, not just in the hunting space. Like, I want to be the biggest and baddest tripod company of all tripod companies. You know what I mean? My end goal isn't just a hunting company. It's shooting and photography and all these things down the road, because I can do it, and I love it. And no one has that. We should talk about that too. Nobody can see the vision you cast for your business other than yourself. Like, you can try and cast best you can, but you're the one that sees it, right? Like, I grew up playing baseball with Josh Buck from Buck Knives.
Mm-hmm.
They were a San Diego company, incredible family, built a gigantic business. You have the opportunity to do something like that.
Yep.
And build something like that, right? And not just be, and I don't know if that's where you want to go. You're building, you're trying to build a business. Like, I don't know if you just want to do, I don't want to say you're niche. You're not niche, but like, do you want to grow? Like, do you want to, like, talk about that. Like,
I've used them as an example. I mean, they're a generational company, right? With generations of families involved. And that's why
4 generations of family right now.
That's why I've never entertained any idea of selling. Like, people come to us like, hey, and we could have probably grown this a lot different way through like investment. But like you say, would I be as hungry if I took $10 million loan, or not loan, but investment from someone else and gave up 80% of my company?
Mm-hmm.
well then, am I going to be as desperate, right? Am I going to work as hard? But also, I don't know what my kids will do and how that'll all work out down the road. But I think it'd be pretty cool if in 3 generations from now, Smith was still running this. Like, I want to build a generational company, but I do want to build a big company. Like, we are trying to chase a Buck or a Benchmade or
Gerber.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
But I want to do it in a way. I've always said, you'll never hear me say I'm trying to build the biggest knife company. I want to build the best.
Yes.
If the best takes us to 3rd in size, but we can't, if I have to make decisions that cheapen the brand or make the product not as good, then I'll take number 3 over number 1.
Yep.
And the best is, that's subjective, and there's lots of great companies out there, knife companies, but we're going to try and build what we feel is the best brand.
Yeah, and I have the same thought with Tricer, right? Like, I want to build the biggest and baddest tripod company, but that will be based on quality. Like,
Right.
my products sell themselves. Montana Knife Company products sell themselves. Like, you don't need to do a lot of marketing when your products sell themselves. When someone picks it up and they're like, wow, this is nice. Like, I never have to hold it. I held them up in Montana and I held them here.
Mm-hmm.
They're just, you pick it up and you're like, this sells itself, right? And good products, and that will grow your business as it is. But there's so much more to this than, don't take this the wrong way. There's so many small knife guys making knives in the hunting industry.
Right.
There's a lot of guys doing it. But you guys are doing it. This is me outside looking in with a little bit different. That's why I brought up Buck, is if I could see it in you. I could hear it in you and just talking to you and see what you guys are doing. You could grow this thing into something big. And so what my point with that is, you have a vision for what this thing could be that you have to kind of try and catch your employees, but nobody sees it except for you. And nobody will pursue it like an entrepreneur does.
Right. No, I agree, and I actually we have meetings on Tuesday morning, and I try to impart that vision out on the employees often, like, because I want them to feel like they're a part of building that. I want them to feel pride and excitement in what we are doing, not me. It's in what we are doing. We have 62 employees now that we're all working on this together. But I show them the plan of like what 5 and 10 years looks like from now. And I'm like, but we got to go all the way back to here. We're nowhere near that. But this is how we're going to get there. And you have to have somebody pushing that vision way out there, but you got to make sure you have really good people concentrating on today, because you start looking too far ahead, you lose track of the little details that make today matter.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It kind of circles back to what you were saying earlier. Like, within Tricer, what I am very good at is designing products, being the face of the company, doing this, talking to you, hanging out with you, right? Like, I could be contagious. I could get you going and talking about things,
right?
And what I'm not good at, I hate finances.
Sure.
Honestly, I hate, like, I'll look at sales, I'll look at our reports, but like, it's not like, I don't want to set up new vendors. I might say, hey, here's the vendor, and pitch them and then give them to you to do it. That's not what I'm good at, right? What I'm good at is being that visionary, casting a vision, and then you need, as a leader. Have you read that book, Rocket Fuel?
No.
It's really good. It talks about being a visionary. There's visionaries, and then there's integrators. You need good integrators around you.
Yep.
A visionary typically is a terrible businessman. That's why businesses fail.
Yep.
You got a visionary who's just so passionate about it. It is making almost emotional decisions. Because I'm telling you right now, like, you love your knives. Like,
right.
It's gotten a little bit easier for you. I can guarantee it, with like people talking crap on the internet. But like,
right.
One dude talks crap about your stuff, it still hurts. You know
it does. It does. And but you're going back to me saying you have to decide, one, where your time is best spent.
Yep.
And no one is an expert in everything.
No.
Right. So like, if you're not strong in finance or don't like it, and same with me, my theory has always been, I want to find the best guy in every area.
Yeah.
I want to find, if I build a team with the best operations guy, the best finance guy, the best marketing guy, the best internet guy, the best content creators, you now start creating like a super team.
Yep.
Now, that being said, that's not only how we judge. We judge people on their abilities second. The first couple interviews with our company is all personally. Like, are you a fit? Are you a fit culturally with just what kind of people we are and what we believe in? Because if you can't come to an event like this and meld with the other employees around you, I don't care how talented you are. If you're an asshole, You can't be around us, right?
Yeah.
If you're lazy, right? You might be incredibly brilliant, but if I need you to go work attack and you say, well, that's not my job, I'm like, well, you don't have a job then.
Yeah.
Like, because when you're in a small business, a lot of times people have to wear multiple hats. You might be the finance guy today, but tomorrow, hey, maybe I need you to go to a local event and work a booth with our guys. And I think that also helps those finance people do their job better, because now they come to this event and they cross-train and they see what the salespeople are doing. They understand the product better. It helps relate that back to QuickBooks and like, oh, I know what these parts are now and I know what they're talking about. And I think that cross-train within a company is good. But like in our interviewing, the first thing I do is I go look at people's social media and like, what do they do on a weekend? Do they get up and do shit? I don't care what it is. Do they go hike? Do they go fish? Do they go do stuff with their family? If you're a doer, that's like number one, because even with our lower level people that are like assembly people, I want people that get up and get after life. I can teach them what they need to know. On like the lower level stuff. Yeah, like a finance guy, you need a wizard day one. But to me, the culture piece, when people are growing companies, even if it's your first hire,
Yep.
your first hire, it needs to be someone like, are they a fit with you?
Yep.
If you don't meld well together, you guys aren't going to be effective as a team.
100%.
Even if they are good at their job. If you two clash, it's going to create dissension, and you're not going to be together.
Yeah, you know what's neat about it too, and like I'm bragging on you right now, but like come into your booth, your whole team's wearing MKC shirts, and you could tell they're proud to be a part of this thing. Like they feel like, and when you get your team behind you like that, and your successes are their successes, that's what you need.
Yeah.
What you don't want is somebody who's in there who's bitter about the boss, or not really. He's just there for a job. You want someone there who wants to grow this thing, and you can tell being in here, these guys are like enjoying their job.
Yeah. They're such good people, and a lot of people shit on young people these days. I'll be honest. I hire a ton of young people. I think they're fun to be around. They have great attitudes. They're excited about life. All their life is ahead of them. Mm-hmm. They have dreams. They have aspirations. They can grasp onto our dream as a company, but then they can also chase their own dreams within our company. Mm-hmm. They can see themselves being leaders down the road. They can see themselves working into positions, and they see people in our shop that have already done that we've moved up. Like Tristan, like I said, he started when he was in high school. Now he's managing 30 people. Mm-hmm. He's 21.
It's awesome.
He's on salary. He's got full benefits. Like, he's doing great. It's building that culture of that team and getting them to buy into the vision, but also understand that if they do that, there's also there's some greatness in there for them. I explained to our team where I worked before, there was a real crabs in a bucket mentality. Like, if you got tapped today to be the foreman of the crew tomorrow, guys would be shitting on you and talking. It's like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's terrible and this and that and whatnot. And I said, in our shop, if I hear anybody talking bad about any of our employees, like, you're out. Like, we are going to root each other on. It's not a competition in this shop. It's a team. There's going to be plenty of opportunity for everyone to move up. But again, I want it's cool. We have archery targets at our shop. These guys shoot bows after work together. My wife and I just took all these guys rafting after work the other night. We went and bought, a bunch of the employees didn't have inner tubes. My assistant went and bought 10 inner tubes, and we all took them at 4:30 and went and floated the river as a team, 25 of us or whatever.
That's awesome.
It's like just that. Also, the employees need to see that the CEO and the director of operations and all these other people are also just regular humans as well.
It's
like to go sit on the river and have fun together.
Yeah, that's a hard thing coming from like my old industry, like being the guy, right? We were running a union company, 80 employees. There is a point where you want to be friends with people, but really it can be difficult, right? Like, you want to think everyone's your friend, but you are the boss too. That's a really weird balance as an owner, because like at the end of the day, you can fire this person, you can't. So it's like this weird balance where and like, I'm just a dude. Like, I have 5 kids. I go to church every Sunday. I go hunting. But it's important to be human and be on people's level. And like, hey, I'm not above you. I'm with you. I'm rooting for you. Because it's so easy to get just lumped into just this asshole boss.
But you have to demand that respect too, like you say.
It's
and
a
so
balance.
the
It's a
way
really
we
big
do
balance.
that is we do that through quarterly reviews.
Okay.
So we review every employee in the company every quarter. We just did it last week, and I sat in on most of them. We're getting big enough. It's hard for me to be on every single one.
Mm-hmm.
But a big part of that is we are going to give every employee something that they could be doing better and work on that. But then we're also going to be telling them, which most of them are all doing amazing. We're going to have plenty of sugar, but there's going to be a little spice in there of like, hey, this is something you can be working on. But it also helps establish and keep that, like, hey, there is a little bit of there's a respect level there, right? Like we can be bros and we can make jokes at each other and we can go floating. But also like, hey, you're going to come in every quarter and we're going to talk to you and we're going to give you feedback and we're going to grade you on your performance and tell you what you need to be working on. How are you going to achieve the next level at this company? How do you achieve pay raises? But I do think that helps keep there's a bit of a line there, right? Where it's not just all joking around and fun all the time, but it's like, hey, we're a business and we're also trying to personally develop everyone. But we also give the employee every quarter during that time the opportunity to tell us what we need to be doing better. And I'll be fully honest, we had a couple employees come in and very respectfully, but like rip our ass on a few things. Like, hey, we're slacking here, here, and here. And we were like, you're 100% right. You're not wrong at all. And so sometimes it's like, but we're going to task you with helping fix that. Because a lot of it is we like when employees bring us problems, but
What are you gonna do about it?
but they have to also bring with them a solution.
Yep.
Now, if we agree or not with the problem and the solution, that's one thing. But don't just bring us a problem. Bring us a solution. Makes them feel like they're actually a part of the team.
Let's talk about that so it sounds like you're somebody who's able to take criticism and be constructive with it. I think that's a very important thing in growing a business, right? Like I take feedback from customers as like the number one thing. Like I tell people all the time, like my tripods now have waterproof legs on them. Cost me $5,000 because one guy had a leg filled with water in Alaska.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm redesigning this new tripod. Let's make molds for this. Let's make all the molds waterproof. Let's do it at the same time. And that's just an extreme example of me just being anal.
Sure.
But how important is it to get feedback from customers and not, like we talked about earlier, these are our babies. And it's really like, this is the best knife ever. And then you get out in the field and it's like, you could have done like one thing different and it would have been perfect.
Yeah.
How important is that feedback to you and not getting offended and taking it?
No, that's why like you'll see like a speed goat knife of ours. We now have a speed goat 2.0. We have a mini goat 2.0. Right? We have some things that as we start seeing feedback coming from the field, it's like, hey, there's something, or maybe it's our sheath. Our sheath design has gone through multiple sheath iterations, and it's critical. And you know, there's some feedback you have to sort through it, right? There's some feedback where it's just like, well, dude, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's lots of knife companies out there. If that's what you're looking for, go get one over there. But there is feedback that's very valid, and it's critical because especially from those people that are using them out in the field a lot, guides, you know, guys that hunt a lot. It's also where your ideas for your next design iterations go. Maybe there's nothing wrong with that particular knife or tripod, but maybe you need to develop a whole new one.
100%.
And so it's also hard to be an idea guy all the time. If it's only on you and it's just on you to constantly come up with a new idea with a tripod, well, that's a lot of pressure. And it's like, God dang, how many ideas can you come up with before you run out of them?
Yep. And ideas are almost exponential too, right? So you get one and then you can build a knife and it's like, a lot of you're probably the same as me. Like by the time I build this tripod, I'm already working on the next tripod.
Right.
You got so many ideas within the process of building that one. Where like, I make this better. Back to the customer complaints. I wouldn't call them complaints. Most people love our stuff, but a lot of times you're gonna get multiple of the same thing, and that's when you really gotta open your eyes as a businessman.
Yep.
And not be like, no, screw you. You just don't know how to use it. And it's like, well, if I've had 4 or 5 guys call me and say, hey man, like this thing popped off. Maybe
So
I need
we've
to
got
about
like
it.
Tori right there, the bald guy. He's our customer service guy, and he answers all of our emails. And so, you know, we tell him, hey man, if you're seeing a theme, I need to know.
Yeah.
Like if there's a theme coming through customer service, and they come to us, and maybe it's just a matter of educating people with a video. They're doing something.
Yep, I do that all the time.
Maybe they're doing something wrong, but if they think it's a problem with the product, we need to solve that.
Yeah.
right? We had some people like stabbing through the side of knife sheaths, leather knife sheaths. And it's like, well, when they're brand new, they're not broke in for that knife just yet. When you're putting them in there initially, you got to kind of make sure you're not catching that tip on the side of the sheath. And they're made to cut leather. You push hard enough, they're going to go through the side of a leather
Yeah,
sheath.
made to cut an animal.
So it's like, well, I don't, and we really reviewed the sheaths, and it's like, is there a problem with our sheath? And it was like, and I was explaining to everybody in the shop, I'm like, no, when you take a brand new sheath and you push it in there, you're really fitting it and molding it. It's like a catcher's mitt or a baseball glove.
Mm-hmm.
The first time, it's not going to be what you want it to be. So you're going to have to take some time to get that thing broke in exactly how you want. So maybe it's an educational thing like that, but maybe it's something else. Maybe it's like, hey, your screws are rusting. We had that, right? Your screws are rusting really bad. And so then we had to start looking at our supply chain and trying to figure out where we could source, we wanted stainless screws, but we wanted them to still be black, so they need to be black oxide. And so, but we have to solve that for the customer, so we've done that. And then we went to a lot of titanium screws. So to your point, like the screws issues, the sheaths, certain things with handles, it's constantly coming from customers, and then we're making those changes.
Yeah, and I think that's how you create a great product. It's so easy to get caught up in, like, this is where we do it, and that's it. But when you do make those changes, it really brings about, an incredible product, right?
And it shows our customers, like, hey, we are actually listening, which they're very patient with you as a new entrepreneur with a company. They're very patient with you with a tripod or a knife if you're like, hey, man, yeah, I agree. Like, we'll work on that. And then you actually do work on it, and a year later you come out with a total fix or solve, and they go, that dude actually did something about it. And they'll be like, hey, I understand you guys are a newer company. You're still working through your supply chain. You're still working through your manufacturing process. You're learning. Customers are very patient as long as you listen.
Yeah, so a few points from that. When it comes to, like, broken things, like you said, you want to hear about it. Everything, if you break one of my stuff, customer, it's coming to my house. Like, I want to know about breaks. Like, if it's something where you lost something or something dumb happened,
right,
we're just going to send you a part, or you're going to pay for a part, whatever it is, we'll get it to you. But, like, if it's breaks, I want to see it because it's something I want to see and be like,
Same.
What did I do wrong? I want to see what I did wrong here and how I could. So it comes to my house directly, and I have to open the box and see it. Half the time, it's the customer did something bonehead. But
and it's like
I still replace it because that's what I'm going to with that. I'll still, like, I've had guys do some bonehead stuff. I had a guy call me or email my customer service and tell them, like, hey, your tripod sucks. Both legs broke on me, and I'm like, what? Oh my! I feel terrible, and I'm like, because he reached out to me, and then I emailed the guy, and I'm like, man, can you send me some pictures? Send me some pictures, and sure enough, it's split right below the head, perfectly cut in half like a knife. And I'm like, man, you know what? Let me email this guy. And I'm like, hey, or I called him. I'm like, hey, man, did you put this up against a bench on a bench rest and then shoot it like a 300 Win Mag? Yeah. And I'm like, what are you lying for? And I actually gave him a new tripod. I'm like, I'll help you out. Because customer, and I actually replaced 2 legs on it and got him set up. And I told you, don't lie, man. But one of the biggest things I get from people is nobody's customer service like you. No one gets, and they love that. They love that I'll get on the phone with them. I'll call people personally because I want to fix it. And right now, that means the world to me because a bad review can crush Tricer, right? A guy getting on a rock slide and is freaking hammering me because I'm an asshole, even though he shot his tripod through a bench, is not what I need. So let's kind of wrap up with customer service, and then we'll get into a hunt story. Talk about customer service and how important it is because that's really what we have is great products and great customer service. I think you guys are the same way. We talk about that.
Yeah. So one thing for sure is like, we're making everything right here in America, and we will also 100% sharpen that knife for you for free for life.
Really?
So, if a guy is not real good at sharpening or struggling or whatever, send that knife into us. We sharpen it the day we get it, and we send it back no later than the next day.
Really?
So if we get on a Monday, it's going back out Monday or Tuesday. And that's really important to me that if I have to hire more people just to make sure that's happening, that's a good problem. That means we have a lot of knives out there. I want people to choose when they're going on their hunt. if that knife's razor sharp, they're going to grab it and go. If it's dull,
They're grabbing a Havilland. You don't want that.
yeah, they're going to grab something else if they don't think they can get it sharp. So it's like, send us that knife. But the other thing is, same thing. You know, I make a lot of our stuff really nice and thin. I want it to be light to carry. It's kind of like the tripod world, right? It's this game of like, how light can you make it? How do you still have it be strong, right? And so, you know, there's going to be a few people there break a tip off of one of our knives. It's going to happen. I'm going to ask how, generally. And generally I'm going to tell the guy, like, hey, man, like, it's not a screwdriver. It's not a pry bar. Like, if you're going to take elk ivories out, here's how you should do that. But, like, prying it with our tip, that's not going to be the way with that knife. Different knives that we make, sure, go ahead.
I was going to say elk ivories.
You
said that.
Elk ivories. Yeah.
Elk ivories.
But the point is but we still send that guy a new knife.
Okay.
So we stand behind the knife, even if it's their fault. And a lot of times, like you say, people they feel bad, they feel dumb, but it takes a little bit of education and we replace the knife. But I think that when you do that with that tripod or that knife, people are going to, the loyalty you're going to create there, and they're going to go tell all their buddies.
Customer for life.
And that's the biggest thing with businesses these days, is you buy something at Shields and it breaks. How the hell do you get a hold of the company to help fix it? It's damn near impossible with most companies, you know. So I think the customer service piece, it's enormous. We have a guy hired, and his job is specifically to go through and read reviews. And if there's a poor review, we reach out to him. And, like, what's the deal? Did we drop the ball? Like, did they email customer service and we somehow missed it or didn't get taken care of? We forgot it. Whatever it is, did we do something that, you know, we made a mistake, or did they not even give us a chance? And
I'll call them personally sometimes.
Yep, and I will too. I have too. But generally, you reach out on there and they can't believe that someone from your company called them or emailed them or whatever, and you take care of it, and they'll go on and they'll change their review.
Yep.
But those reviews are very, very important. In fact, on your own website, like the Google review stuff, a lot of the rankings on web pages and whatnot, it looks at your Google review. And if your review's poor, it's not going to rank you as high.
Yep.
So there's several reasons why a guy wants to pay attention to that. But the customer service is huge. In fact, that's why for the longest time it was only my wife that did it, my wife and I, before we hired Tori. It got to a point where we needed another guy, but I didn't, frankly, really trust anyone else to do it. Like, I told my wife, I want to know about every problem. You know, that was how it was for the first few years.
Yeah. Well, that's freaking awesome, dude. So we always wrap this pod up with a hunting story.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be your biggest. It could be your fun. It could be your first. It could be your kid, whatever. It could be one where you didn't get anything. Just give us a hunting story, 5 minutes, something like that. Knock something out for us. Campfire story, the one you're going to tell this October when you get in the camp.
There's a couple. I'd say this one, actually, I was standing in my kitchen not hunting at all. But the day before I took my boy out elk hunting, it was hot and smoky and it wasn't real good. We came home and he was like, well, I'm going to get up in the morning and go deer hunting down by the river from our house.
By himself?
Yeah.
How old is
he was at that time he was 14. Now he's 16 now. So he took his bow and he went down to the river. He got up at 5:30 or 6 before daylight and walked down there. And he's just spotting stock and trying to get something, and generally that's never going to really
whitetails
really
down
work.
there.
Whitetails down there. And about 9:30 in the morning, I get a call from him. And it's pretty common. He'd call me a lot of times and be like, I think there might be deer on this island. Like, how do you think I should get over to it, or what should I do? And so he calls me, and he's whispering. He's like, Dad, he's like, can I shoot a bear? And I was like, well, yeah, if it doesn't have cubs. I'm like, how far is it? And he goes, 10 yards. And I was like, shit, you better. And he was like, hold on a minute. And he sets the phone down on he puts it on speaker. He's got his bow. And all of a sudden I just hear whack. And he starts screaming, oh my God, oh my God. He's like freaking out. And I'm like, God, are you being eaten right now? Like, what's going on? And he's like, I killed it. And I was like, where are you? And he's like, right behind the house. And we live kind of along the river bottom. So everything behind us is kind of floodplain and the river back there. And there's like 500 acres back there of just public land. And I was like, well, where exactly? And he goes, come to the living room window. And I like walk over the living room window, and he walks out of the tree line and waves his hand, and he was like 200 yards from our living room.
No way.
He was walking back from the river to the house, and as he was coming back, he came through this thick brush, and this bear started snapping its jaws at him.
Freaking trash eater.
Yeah, and it was right there, and so he shot that deer, or that bear. That was pretty cool. He shot a bear when he was 12 with his rifle with me, spotted it from 1.5 miles. We had to drop. I was like, when he wanted to go after it, I was like, oh my God, we're never going to get this bear, because he was way on a different mountain. We dropped off into this bottom. It was raining, terrible. Hiked all the way back up, have lost sight of this bear for 2 hours by the time we get back up there. And I told him, like, well, we're going to come up in a little different area because we got to get the wind right. And so we're going to come up downwind of it. And we pop up on top, and there's that bear at 100 yards, still just feeding. Well, then we couldn't get him set in his scope. He couldn't find it. You know what it's like with a kid.
I have 2 boys who've killed like 4 or 5 deer and a bunch of antelope and all that stuff. If you can get a kid an animal, like, you're a good hunter.
Yeah.
It's so much harder, but it's so much more rewarding.
Well, we started following that bear, and I get him all set up, and we were wet. I mean, it was like we swam over there. So I'm trying to clean off his scope, and we're sweating and wet and water running everywhere. And so get him set up on the bear, and the bear moves, walks off. So then we start stalking that, and we had to stay with that bear for probably another hour. And we just kept moving with the bear. And every time that bear would start, when they're just feeding, he'd feed for 30 seconds. And about the time Hank would be about set up with his rifle, and then he'd move to his right. And then now he's behind a tree. And we just kept staying with him. And about an hour later, Hank shot him. And it was a big bear, like a beautiful bear. And had to pack it out about 1.5 miles. And my rule is with my kids, when they shoot something, they have to have the heaviest pack. So he had about 65 pounds in his pack, and we packed ours just a little bit lighter and packed it. But it was just an epic hunt the way it worked out. But some pretty cool hunts. He that same year, a week later, after he shot that bear with his bow, he shot a 6-point bull elk with Gary with his bow.
Really?
So a pretty good year for a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
So,
dude, Josh, Montana Knife Company, you are living the American dream. You're a success story. I'm stoked for you. Proud of you.
Well, thank you, man.
Whatever you need from my company, we are here to help you.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, congratulations to what you're doing. People got to remember, too, when we started that, you and I both, that was COVID.
Dude, it was like
the dumbest thing you could do.
And like 2 months later, it was COVID. And it's just like,
Same. We went to an event in South Carolina in February, the first weekend.
Yeah.
And we're flying out there. They were kind of talking about this COVID
I was in
thing.
Vegas, same thing.
It was kind of talking about it, and we did the weekend thing. And flying home, it was like, okay, on the news a lot more. And dude, a week later,
it was the same. It must be the same weekend. 'Cause I was in. It was like Chinese
February
New Year's
4th. Yes,
in Vegas.
Yep.
I remember they're talking about this thing coming out of China. And we were kind of joking around about it.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, I was from California. They shut us down. It was a nightmare. But man, yeah, dude, I'm stoked for you guys.
So, well, now congratulations to you, and I appreciate it.
Let's do it again, man.
All right, thanks.